Welcome to In the Money. I'm your host, Daniel Dent. Over the last 20 years, I've worked with families and businesses helping them become financially savvy. And now I'm going to do the same for you. Each show, I'm going to share personal financial topics to help you make better informed financial decisions. Pensions are a large part of many people's retirement. After working your entire life, you dream of sitting on the beach, going on a cruise, playing golf, spending time with family, really doing anything but worrying about money. A pension is supposed to be one of the safest sources of retirement income, but is it really? The Central States Pension Fund, one of the largest private pension funds founded by Jimmy Hoffa, is close to failing. Stanford University recently estimated that California's state and local pension plans are underfunded by as much as $300 billion. Joining us today is Matt Keathley, Investment Administrator with the Department of the Navy. There's an epidemic with unhealthy pension plans, but there are some plans that are managed well. What you do with those plans and what your options are and your choices you make will impact your retirement. If you or a family member have a pension plan, stay tuned.
You are watching Germantown Municipal Television, your source for everything Germantown.
We're discussing pensions today. Joining us is Matt Keathley, Investment Administrator with the Department of the Navy. Matt, welcome to the show. Thanks for coming out.
Daniel, thanks for having me. I appreciate it.
Tell us what you do.
Sure, Daniel. My name is Matt Keathley, as you mentioned. I'm the Investment Administrator for CNIC, which stands for Commander Navy Installations Command. We are the civilian arm of the Navy, and what we essentially do is manage anything that you see on an installation around the globe that's non-weapon related, I guess. So food and beverage services, child care, hotels and lodging on bases, et cetera, et cetera. So because of the different types of things that we do, our organization is not run like you think of a typical government organization. We're run more like a corporation than, say, the Postal Service or organizations like that. So in my role as investment administrator, I serve as, when you think of a corporate cash portfolio manager or a treasury manager, that's mainly my role. So the portfolio that I manage is mainly a low duration government bond portfolio. That's the main part of my job. I also serve as a consultant for the investments in our pension plan and 401k plan as well.
Okay, and let me just say this. You're a CFP, a CFA, and you hold a JD as well.
That's correct.
We get it, man. You're a smart guy.
It's actually kind of a pain. I have two business cards I have to duct tape together.
Okay.
Yeah, it's kind of...
And then you also serve on the City of Germantown's Retirement Plan Administration Commission. Tell us a little bit about what you do there.
Sure, Daniel. I do serve on that commission. It's very much an honor to be able to serve the city I live in. I serve the pretty similar role that I serve in on the retirement plan that I work with. We monitor the investments of the plan, monitor the asset allocation of the plan, monitor the funded levels of the plan, et cetera, et cetera.
So very well versed in pensions. You're the right guy to have here today.
I hope so. I hope so.
So in the past, pensions were very popular with employers. Right. Why is that, and why do we not see as many pensions today, at least on the private side?
Right. Well, there are a couple different reasons. I think they are a very good recruiting tool. Or they were a very good recruiting tool for new employees. Really good to be able to retain employees once you've got them under the fold. And they also served very much tax benefits. The contributions made by the employer for the pension benefits for employers were deductible from their taxes. The reasons that you see that these benefits have kind of got away is more of a cost-benefit analysis. I think it's costing companies more now, and it's not worth the benefit of keeping the employees and having the benefits that maintain the employees.
Yeah, I think just like you said, the expense of having it. Mm-hmm. Then also demographically, we see changes. People just aren't staying with employers as long, so maybe it's not as attractive as it used to be. Now you mentioned a couple other types of retirement plans, and there's confusion, I think, at times because the terms are used interchangeably.
Right.
So what's the difference between a pension plan or a defined benefit plan, also a pension,
right,
are also used terminology-wise as a pension, versus, say, a 401k or a 403b plan?
I think the main difference, Daniel, is who actually makes the contributions and who is in charge of the investments and who is in charge of making the benefit payments. For a defined contribution plan, employers and usually employees make contributions to the plan. For a defined contribution plan or 401k or 403b, like you mentioned, the employee is the primary contributor to the plan. Now, some employers will make contributions to the plan. The other, I guess the next difference is who is in charge of actually managing the investments. For a defined benefit plan, the employer is responsible for making the benefits, so they are also responsible for choosing the investments under the plan. For a defined contribution plan, 401k, 403b, the participant is actually in charge of who the investment choices they make, the asset allocation choices they make, the funds they pick, et cetera, because ultimately they are in charge of the benefit they receive when they retire.
And so all of these retirement plans have vesting, and I think that's one more important term that we need to define. Can you help us understand vesting?
Sure. Vesting is the procedure or the process by which a person acquires non-forfeitable rights over the employer's contributions to their plan. They always have the rights over their own contributions and the investment returns, but that vesting process is the process where they acquire the rights to the money that the employer has put into the plan.
Okay. And so let's talk about how pension plans are funded, because we want to focus on pensions today, not 401ks or 403bs.
Sure.
And you talked a little bit about that, but tell us more about how pension plans are actually funded.
Pension plans are funded, for a funded plan actually, usually by the employer, obviously, and by the employee. And sometimes the employee is not included in that, but the employer is the main funder for a plan. And
I think you had mentioned this earlier as well. How is that money invested, and can I, as say an employee, can I control how that money is invested?
I'll answer your second question first. Actually, no, the employer does not have control over the investments of the plan. The money is invested usually by a group of trustees. Most pensions are set up in the trust format. So the trustees are ultimately responsible for making the investment choices in the plan. Asset allocation choices, what managers are used, different types of assets used, et cetera, et cetera.
So when I, as an employee, I'm looking at different retirement plans, I know I can contribute more or less to different types of plans. Can I contribute, if I want to save more for retirement, can I contribute to a pension plan like this?
No, actually, Daniel, you can, but that you can't contribute more than what is actually set out and defined in the plan documents. Most plan documents, or all plan documents, excuse me, have a defined set of contributions that the employee must make to the plan. You actually can't contribute more to it than what's actually defined in the plan document.
Okay, let's talk about different types of plans. You've got plans with municipalities, with the federal government, still some plans in the private sector.
Sure.
Are there differences between those, or are they all basically the same thing?
There are some differences between those plans, and I think the main difference is who actually makes that promise to pay the benefit. When you look at a public plan, be it federal government, like the plan that I oversee, a municipality, that promise to pay the plan is actually based on that governmental entity, be it the city of Germantown, be it the United States Navy for the plan that I work for. When you work for a private plan or work for a private company and receive a private benefit, the promise to pay that benefit is actually based on the health of the company that you work for. So that's the primary difference between the two.
Okay. Probably the question that you get a lot, whether it's on the volunteer work that you do or through your employer, is how is my pension plan doing?
Right.
Because we hear a lot about that these days.
Right.
So let's start with how are pensions managed?
Sure. It is a question I get a lot, and I'm lucky. I always tell the person that asks me the question, I can tell you how the different investment managers do and how the plan's allocated, whether the funded levels are, but ultimately for that retiree or that participant, it ultimately doesn't matter. The benefit that they are guaranteed is based on the plan formula and is the responsibility of the employer. So to that person who has that benefit, it really doesn't matter.
Okay, let's hold that thought for a minute. We need to take a quick break. We'll be right back with Matt Keathley.
Cinderella found the pet that fits her perfectly. Tiana gave her pet the royal treatment. Belle found beauty where no one else did. And you can too. Share your heart. Share your love. Bring home your forever friend. Make a shelter pet part of your world. Happily Ever After begins at theshelterpetproject.org.
How can I help my daughter with her reading?
Searching for help with Dachshund breeding.
No.
Let me try. Sarah's bright, but when she's reading, she has trouble sounding out words.
Playing world music.
What?
I give up.
Wait, I was trying to show you how Sarah feels every day. Frustrating, isn't it? Redirecting to understood.org.
Join parents and experts at understood.org, a free online resource about learning and attention issues to help your child thrive.
You are watching Germantown Municipal Television, your source for everything Germantown.
Welcome back to In the Money. If you're just joining us, we're talking about pensions. Today we're joined by Matt Keathley, who's the investment administrator with the Department of the Navy. Matt, before we went to break, we were talking about how pension plans were managed, and I wanted to talk also about who chooses the investment options, because if all this money is going toward my retirement, gosh, it'd be great if I could direct that, but with pensions, as you mentioned earlier, that's not the case. It's not self-directed. So who does choose those investment options, and how is that part of it managed?
Sure, Daniel, no problem. As I mentioned to you earlier, most pensions are set up in a trust structure, and they have trustees in that trust structure. So the trustees are the people that are ultimately responsible for making those investment decisions. Now, most trustees have internal investment advisors, similar to the role I serve with the Navy, or they have consultants who advise those trustees on which managers to choose, asset allocation, what different assets to put in the plan, etc.
So as far as choosing those trustees, what's let's just take a municipality, for example, a city, a small city or a large city. How do they go about choosing who is a trustee for that to drive those investment decisions and other decisions?
It's an appointment process, and usually trusts have standard operating procedures that say a certain member of this class, a certain member with a certain person with this education level should be part of the trust, or should be part of the trustees that manage the. But there is usually some kind of education level knowledge of the subject that's required in order to be a trustee for the plan.
Okay, and then you had also mentioned consultants. Can you talk a little bit more about what that looks like? Who are these consultants? Are they how are they selected?
Sure. Most trustees, that being a trustee is not their full-time job. A lot of them have different day jobs than say something in the investment field. So they often have consultants, as you mentioned. Now, consultants are usually chosen by the trust. I'll give you an example. In the case of the trust that I work for, there was a competitive bidding process. We go out and select different consultants from around the country, and there are different consulting groups. And those consultants will, like I said, they usually don't have a vote as to what assets go in the plan, but they will provide asset allocation decisions. They will provide manager searches, all the different information that goes up into making the ultimate decision from a trustee to say, I want to invest with this manager and I want this percentage of the trust to go into that.
And one of the other people that plays a big role are actuaries, right? So can you talk about what that actuary does?
Sure, Daniel. The primary role of the actuary is to tell the trustees and to tell the people that make decisions about the plan how much money the actual, be it a municipality, be it a government organization, be it a company, needs to put in the plan to keep it funded to the level. There's a term called actuarial required contribution, or ARC, and actually this is a number that the pension must contribute to itself each year to keep its level funded to a healthy funded level.
At the top of the show, I had mentioned Central States Pension Fund, and also some of the pension funds in California being underfunded. Why are we seeing this happening all of a sudden?
Sure, Daniel. I think one of the main reasons that you see this happening is a lot of plans built in too high of estimated return expectations into their plans. So an estimated return expectation goes into the formula and the calculation that defines the actuarial required contribution that we mentioned earlier, the ARC. So if a return level is set too high, what happens is the trustees or whoever is managing the contributions plan actually will not put enough money into the plan that they actually should have. So say an estimated return level is at 8%, and the actual returns of the investments in the plan are 7%. Well, the ARC says that you need to put a certain amount of money in the plan, when actually you should be putting in a much larger amount of money into the plan to keep it to a healthy funded level.
So if that formula is off, basically we're taking more money out of the fund than we're putting into the fund in long term.
Correct.
Similar to the conversations with Social Security and Medicare benefits, for example.
Correct.
You start looking at this underfunded, as you had mentioned, effect. What are some of the actions that pension plan administrators take if they feel like the the plan is not funded enough or it's becoming unhealthy?
Well, they can actually increase that. They can actually lower that estimated return level, which will increase the ARC, as we discussed earlier, or the actuarial required contribution, and make that number bigger. They can also make offset or one-off contributions to the plan to keep it to a funded level that they think it should be. There may be a specified funded level in the plan document that your plan is required to meet this funded level. They can raise that as well to increase the required contributions that need to go into the plan.
And so how often are these, are the trustees or the organization, whether it's a municipality or whether it's a private organization, how often are they looking at how much needs to be funded into the plan?
Sure, at least annually. When you get an actuary report, those come out annually. But if you have a plan that has a funded level that's in major need of required contributions, you can look at those quarterly or semi-annually. The problem is that there's a lot of data that goes into that actuarial required contribution, and it takes actuaries actually a long time to come out with that number. So most plans only look at them annually, and like I said, unless there's a pretty large funding gap that needs a little bit more attention.
Yeah, so I guess due to the time it takes to calculate all that, looking at it monthly or even quarterly may not be feasible. It just doesn't make a lot of sense.
Right.
So let's talk about, and again, we hear these plans that are unhealthy or having issues. We keep hearing this term that pension plans are frozen. What does that mean? And actually that happens with healthy plans also, but
sure.
What does that term frozen mean, and does that indicate that there's a problem?
Sure. It can and it can't, Daniel. The technical definition of frozen means that an employee cannot make any more contributions to the plan. Now, like you mentioned earlier, it can be a situation where the plan is to a funded level where they want to close the plan and open up a new plan. That first plan would be frozen. It can also mean that the plan is planning to liquidate the plan. They don't have enough money to pay out benefits and they freeze the plan as well, and that's a bad situation.
So just because they close off access to, or I guess new entrants into a pension plan, it doesn't mean that it's necessarily a negative thing. It just means they're going to open a new plan, or maybe they've just stopped offering the pension altogether, but the people that are already covered are still going to get that benefit. Is that correct?
Sure, that's correct. Up until a plan is frozen, the benefits that have been guaranteed under that plan, the participant is still entitled to those benefits. Whatever benefits you accrue, you are entitled to until the plan closes. Now, if a plan is frozen and a liquidation occurs, something to that effect, your future benefits will be affected.
And we've seen that and started hearing more and more of that with liquidations or having to freeze plans for negative reasons, and benefits are changed, whether it's lowering their benefit or changing their future benefit or changing their existing benefit even, right?
True. Very true.
Let's take a break on that note. We have to take another short break, and we'll be right back with Matt Keathley.
Really? Buzz, what's up, man? You left some leaves burning out here.
Yeah, I just just came in just for a second.
Come on, man. If it's too hot to touch, it's too hot to leave. You could torch the whole neighborhood.
It's a good point there, Smokey.
9 out of 10 wildfires are caused by humans.
Only you can prevent wildfires.
So who's gonna do what?
I'll pack the dead batteries.
Great.
I'll only put what I don't need into a duffel bag.
Perfect. That's totally unhelpful.
No problem.
Meanwhile, I will try to comfort everyone by speaking in a calm voice. And who is going to handle supplies?
I can forget to do a list for us.
Thanks, pal.
We couldn't be any less prepared. I'm proud of you guys.
Talk to your kids about who to call, where to meet, what to pack. Visit ready.gov/kids for tips and information.
You are watching Germantown Municipal Television, your source for everything Germantown.
Welcome back to In the Money. We're discussing pensions today with Matt Keathley. Matt, before the break, we were talking about the health of pension plans. One of the questions that I wanted to ask is, if I've worked for an organization for my entire life and I'm eligible for a pension, how do I know the health of that pension program? Is that something that I as an employee can keep an eye on, or at least know what's going on?
Sure, Daniel. There are multiple ways to figure out the health of that plan. Most investment committee trustee meeting minutes are posted online of the website of the company or the municipality or the government agency. A lot of public plans, municipalities, government agencies also open up their meetings to the public, so you can go and hear about how well the plan is funded. Most plans, I know my plan in particular, a lot of public plans, and I think a lot of private plans as well, will put their funded levels in the financial statements as well. I know our organization puts a footnote in the financial statements that shows the funded level of the plan, different asset levels, et cetera.
So it's all out there, the information's out there. It just takes a little bit of work on our part to go find the website and maybe read some minutes every now and then and see what's actually going on. Let's say I retire and I start receiving my pension. Does that mean I'm quote unquote safe and nothing can happen to that benefit? Because that's a question that comes up quite a bit.
For the most part it does, Daniel. Like we mentioned earlier, the benefits that you've accrued before there are changes in the plan, before a plan is liquidated, those benefits are guaranteed. Now, when I say guaranteed, like you said, it's actually based on the health of the company. But there also is a government agency called the Pension Benefit Guarantee Corporation that guarantees benefits as well. Now, the problem with if a plan is liquidated in the PBGC is in Pension Benefit Guarantee Corporation, sorry about that, they only guarantee benefits up to a certain amount. So say your monthly benefit was a couple $2,000 to $3,000 a month. Depending on the situation, the PBGC may only guarantee $1,000 a month. So if your plan is liquidated, if there are issues with your plan, it's terminated, et cetera, your benefit might not be as great as it once was, but there will be a guarantee of some type of payment going forward.
So does that PBGC cover every pension plan, or is that, say, like insurance almost that certain pensions or trustees buy that covers the plan?
Well, it's both actually. It is insurance that that companies must pay into to cover their plans, but it does cover all plans and plans that are actually not every plan is. I'll take that back. Not every plan is covered by the plan, but most healthy funded plans will pay for that insurance and they're covered by the plan.
So we talked about the health of the pension plan, and you brought this up in some of your comments about the health of the company. So if the company or again the municipality is bought or sold, or maybe is just having problems, what happens to my pension at that point?
Sure, Daniel. I think I mentioned this earlier, but up to that point, all the benefits that you've earned of the plan are guaranteed. So whenever that X date is and the pension plan liquidates, changes its format, whatever, your benefits are guaranteed up to that point. Now, what that does not mean is the benefits may change going forward. So say I've been a participant in a plan for the 15 years. For those 15 years, if I'm vested, those benefits are guaranteed. The next 15 through 30 years, they may change depending on the new format of the plan, whether it's liquidated in the worst case scenario, or whether they just change the benefit options.
So important to keep up with not only the health of the pension plan, but what's happening with that company. Is it, what's the longevity? Is it being bought or sold, and so forth?
Correct.
Let's talk about more at an individual level. How do I know what my pension benefit will be as I get closer to retirement?
Sure, Daniel. The pension benefit is actually based on a certain formula. Each plan has its own different formula. Usually they're based on number of years with the employer. Most of the time it's based on the average salary the last couple of years of employment. And usually there's some certain percentage of that average salary based into the formula. Again, they vary in complication. They vary in the certain percentage of that salary, how many years that salary is averaged over, but each individual plan has its own benefit formula that it uses.
And then those formulas can be different too based on the type of payout options that I would like to have, right? Can you walk us through some of those different payout options?
Sure, Daniel. There's two basic payout options. There's a life-only pension plan, which is based on the life of one participant, and there's a life with a beneficiary option. Use that beneficiary option as a spouse option. So if I am married, when I get a pension benefit until I die, and then my spouse gets that another benefit for the rest of her life as well, if you choose that second option.
And generally speaking, if it's the employee only for life, I'm going to have a higher benefit, but if I'm having to share that with a beneficiary, it'll be somewhat lower.
True.
Right?
True.
Okay. So what's the eligible age that employees can generally start receiving a pension, or is that different between different pensions?
It is different between different pensions. The IRS sets normal retirement age as 65 or the earlier of an age specified in the plan. So that may be 62, it may be 63. So that's the U.S. Around the globe, that normal retirement age can vary for anywhere from 60 to 67 years old. And some plans have, as I mentioned, earlier retirement ages than that. It can be a formula of how many years you've worked for the company. If you work for the company started early and worked for the company for 30 years, you may be able to retire at 60, 62, whatever the case is.
So let me ask you this question. We talked about before, I can't control how it's invested, but let's say I get to age 65 and I want to start that pension. Can I get it as a lump sum and then invest it however I want? Or normally what people think of as pension is you get that monthly payment.
Sure. Most pension plans offer both options. So you can get it as a lump sum or you can get an annuity for the different time periods that we discussed earlier. There's various advantages and disadvantages to both. A lot of pension plans don't have a inflation calculator built into their benefits. So once you start receiving benefits, that benefits doesn't change for the rest of your life. If you take it as a lump sum, you can manage your money a little bit differently as well. Equate some kind of inflation expectation into your investments and make sure that you covered that. There also are certain tax implications. If you take a lump sum benefit, you can roll that over to a 401k and control your taxes better than what you would get under a normal annuity benefit.
So it really depends on your individual situation.
Correct.
Yeah.
Correct.
So you'd mentioned taxation by rolling over or not getting taxed by being able to roll it over. But if you just take a monthly benefit, what do the taxes look like there?
Sure. The monthly benefit is based on that person's normal income rate. So whatever your normal income tax rate is when you retire, those benefits will be taxed at that level.
And let's say I choose whatever that pension amount is going to be. Do I have the ability to change that benefit later? So let's say I go into retirement single. I'm a lucky guy after I go to Vegas one weekend and I end up married, but I've already selected my pension benefit based on my life only. Can I change that after?
Well, first of all, congratulations.
Oh, thanks. Thank you.
But yes, you can change that benefit option. There are several situations, as you mentioned, that if you retire unmarried, get married. If you retire married, become unmarried, you can also change the benefit as well. If your spouse consents, if you're married and your spouse consents to you changing the beneficiary, say you have a disabled child, etc., you can also change the benefit in that manner as well.
Okay, great. Matt, thank you for coming out. Again, you're probably the most well-educated guy I've had on this show, so thanks again for your time.
Daniel, I really appreciate you having me today.
What should you be doing? Read information the organization provides about the plan. It's available on websites and other areas. Understand your income needs in retirement so you can make a better choice for yourself when you become eligible. While pension plans are no longer sacred cows that they used to be, most plans are still being managed responsibly. With all that said, it's best to protect and plan for yourself. Don't leave your retirement solely up to the government or anyone else. That's all the time we have today. Thanks to Matt Keathley, and thank you for watching. If you'd like to see more shows, follow us on YouTube or Facebook at Germantown Municipal Television. You can also visit our website at www.gmtvonline.org. And remember, each person's financial situation is unique. Before making any decision, speak to a financial professional to see if our discussions today are in your best interest. We'll see you next month. I'm Daniel Dent, and now you are in the money.